to another episode of Building the Pride, where I have terrible lighting this afternoon. I am your host, Drew, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Just as handsome as ever, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm fighting a little congestion, and it's keeping me up at night, and I don't enjoy it. But other than that, things are great.
Excellent.
Tigers are off to a good start. Red Wings could make the playoffs. Drafts in 3 weeks. So I'm pretty happy about the state of Michigan athletics.
Yeah, and University of is reigning national champions for another 11 and a half months. Well, not 11 and a half. I guess it's already April. God, time has flown. Another 8 months. How's that?
It's fine. You know, like it's been 27 years since I got to celebrate the last one. So I'm pretty grateful that I got.
You were just a babe.
Yep.
And now you're a babe.
I was 15.
15, yeah.
A mere 15 years old when they won the last time, but
was that a Bo Schembechler led?
No, that was Lloyd Carr.
Carr, okay.
Yeah, no. So at least you didn't say Graham Yost, who was like 1920 or something like that. But
he's old enough to have their ice arena named after him. True. So
no, yeah. Lloyd Carr, I know I've been watching football since I was about 7. And I know I watched the Lions and like the Scott Mitchell, Andre Ware era.
But Eric Hipple? Did you ever watch Eric Hipple?
Yeah, that name doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, well, you're not missing out much. We always called him Typical Hipple because there'd be some blunder. We're like, Typical Hipple.
That is a terrible nickname.
Sorry, Eric, but you know, it's what it is.
I'm sure he subscribed to the show.
So, I'm sure, yeah. Shit, we went from 102 to 101. Who knew?
Damn it, come back here. But yeah, so the first coach that I was aware of was Lloyd Carr from Michigan and like Wayne Fonts, I believe, for the Lions.
Yep.
So
the era of mediocrity.
Yeah. Worst thing you can be in sports is mediocre. I'd rather be terrible. I'd rather be great.
If you're great, you don't have to worry about getting great. If you're terrible, you've got the assets and the draft picks to have the hope of getting great.
Yeah, exactly. So, but as we get close, this is kind of a nice little lull period between, pro days, the combine, and the actual draft. So now teams are going to start having their top 30 visits.
Yep. We've had a couple of them already, haven't we?
The last one that I heard about, I don't know if this is confirmed, it was cornerback Andrew Phillips from Kentucky was going to be a top 30 visit for the Lions, which I think is noteworthy. So, like, I've been listening to Eric Schlitt, who is a beat writer for the Detroit Lions. I've been listening to his podcast. And he's got a lot of, you would hope, but he's got a lot of good insights on how the team operates, and he's been saying, like, watch the top 30 visits. Like, Detroit usually drafts players that they bring in from their top 30 visits. So I'm going to be kind of watching that information to see, like, okay, like Andrew Phillips, that might be a day 2 pick.
He's quarter or cornerback?
Cornerback.
Okay, I'll say. I think he said quarterback at first, and I'm like, I don't remember him on my quarterback list.
No,
cornerback makes far more sense.
I agree. So, so I think I'd like to review the top 30 visits when they get set. See who the Lions are looking to bring in for another visit. So I think that'll be pretty enlightening. Obviously, they're not going to draft 30 players.
Yeah. I thought I read about one today, and I'm trying to find it, and I'm just not seeing it. But
do you remember what school it was?
I happened to flip through it at work over lunch, which for the most part I worked through, so I don't remember many details. I'll track it down while we're going here, I'm sure.
Okay. So where should we start today, Michael?
Well, so the two topics that I kind of wanted to talk, or actually you wanted to talk about, that I threw in the show notes were, number one, talking about comp picks, right? If we're talking about building the pride and roster construction, we have to look at everything. You have to look at all the different assets a team has in order to build those, championship teams, right? So, and those championship rosters, comp picks is a big piece of that, right? So, how do you get them? What are they? That was one thing that I think we wanted to go over. And then the other one is there's a place kicker making the rounds on social media for all of those kicker starved teams and their fans, like the Lions, like the Rams. Like there's a couple others that I've seen out there going, oh my gosh, this guy. So those are the two things that we figure we talk about. Do you have an order or preference?
Well, let me see if I can bring up this kicker here real quickly. So he plays for the new United Football League Michigan Panthers, who were really, really bad last year, but are doing pretty well so far this year. They're second in the North. They're 4-6, it looks like, but it's not great. But what are you going to do? Let me see if I can find this guy here. Scroll. Jake Bates. 5'10", 200 pounds, 24 years old, went to the University of Arkansas, and all of it, he kind of got some hype on social media because he knocked in a 64-yard field goal to win the game for the Panthers. Could have been opening week or certainly early in the season, and then he hit a 60-yarder to follow that one up in a. Yep, here we go.
Let's get that banner out of the way there.
Snap is down, clean hold, kick is up, and it is good! Build him the statue right now!
Right on.
So, obviously, he's kicking indoors, which, to be honest, in my opinion, no one should be playing outside anymore. It's just ridiculous. And
that's real football, Drew. Don't you like real football?
No, I don't. I like indoor football.
I don't want the elements to decide the game. I want the
correct.
Players to decide the game.
I don't want the refs to decide it. I don't want the rain to decide it. I want the snow to decide it or the wind. I want
especially playoffs.
Yes.
Like I thought was it against the Bills where it was Detroit versus I think it was the Bills, maybe it was the Jets. And just heavy downpour of snow, and they had to like snow blow the lines, and there's that like kind of famous-ish pass. Calvin Johnson goes down, his face mask is full. Like those games are fun occasionally. Regular season games, right, where they all mean something because if we lose that, we maybe don't make the playoffs, or if we win, maybe we do. But like, I don't mind an occasional game like that, but if the norm is, 4 or 5 games a season, or if you're a team like Buffalo, maybe 6 of your 8 home games are decided through that kind of stuff. That's less than ideal, right?
Yeah, so I'm fine with it so long as it's Philadelphia and Washington.
Right. I don't want my team to get screwed over.
I don't want my team to do it. So, anyways, that kid's been generating quite a lot of press. For good reason. Kicking 60-yard field goals is not easy no matter where you're doing it. And he's right down the street, in the Michigan Panthers facility. So why not bring him in for a tryout? I would. Why not? Even if you draft a kicker, I think that you should bring in a ton of people for.
Got a legit shot. I watched him warm up.
Here's find the 60, but again, no rushing 4-yard right here.
First and 10 at the 35. 4-man rush.
This is not. All right.
Have been good, but they'll kick anyway.
This is really where like they call timeout right beforehand, right?
That would have been good, but the Battlehawks called time.
After timeout.
Good snap. Good hold. Line drive. Kick. It is good.
I mean, to be honest, like if you're Brad Holmes, and you're like, oh, we couldn't find a kicker. We had Riley Patterson and Michael Badgley last year, and we cut one and then traded for him, to come back and elevated from the practice squad or whatever, brought him in off his couch, and then there's this kid. The Lions were 90% on, I believe, on field goal tries last year. Didn't try many.
Both of them. Yeah, there weren't that many.
But 90% is not terrible. But like
solid.
They would not kick a field goal unless it was something like we're on the somewhere between the 32 and the 28, and it was 4th and 7.
Yeah.
And you just weren't going to go for it. So then
when it came to the Niners game, right?
Right, exactly.
We're outdoors on the road in the playoffs, and our kicker had never made an outdoor kick all season. Because we didn't go for it. Yeah, and we never went for it.
Never attempted
it. You have to assume that a good chunk of that is confidence. They didn't have the confidence that these were an easy 3 points. If that's Jason Hansen, if that's Matt Prater, I think you kick a lot, far more field goals. And I think we kicked both of those field goals in the playoffs if we had Matt Prater or Jason Hansen on our team. So finding a guy you have confidence in is going to be pretty critical.
And we should be giving the kicker some love because they won the Chargers game, based on a last-second field goal attempt. And it's not like they weren't terrible. They just didn't utilize them.
Yeah.
And like, to me, if your team is in the NFC Championship game, or you have a game like you had in Dallas, where you're on the road and you're fighting tooth and nail right down to the wire, you need to have this utility on your team. You need to be able to say, okay, like we could go for it here, or this kid's 90% from 40 plus, trot him out. Let's go.
Yeah.
No one's going to fault you for that. So, I think that's something they should be looking at this season. And this kid was just the most recent example of, oh, okay, maybe he's closer than you think.
Yeah, and it's not like it was just a one and done, right? It wasn't I got lucky one time. The dude kicked a 62, and then he kicked a 64-yarder twice back to back as they try to ice him. So this is not something where it is was it a miracle the first time? Was it an anomaly? Doesn't seem so. I haven't, granted, watched those games, throughout the season, so maybe he's 3 for 20 from 50 plus. I don't know, but the 3 that I've seen have been pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. So, okay. So, like, I just thought that would be fun to kind of talk about Jake Bates from Arkansas, kicking in the brand new UFL. So
yeah, and I know the Rams fans are clamoring for it as well because they don't have a kicker after they let Matt Gay go year and a half ago. So he wasn't with them last year, and they felt it just like we felt not having a kicker. They felt it as well. So they've been clamoring for it. We've been clamoring for it, and I'm sure there's other fan bases with shitty kickers that are clamoring for it as well.
I mean, it's easy, I think, to say, to like, oh, they missed a field goal. Like, that's your one fucking job. Like, you can't, you're not, you got hired to do this. Like, you can't mess up, or whatever. But like, all those extra points, all the field goal attempts, like, that all adds up.
If you look at the, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm probably gonna go where you're gonna go. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you look at the most teams' highest scoring player in their history, it's always a kicker.
Right. They just have more more opportunities to score points. Hey, Zakwa. And I think that's a good question, Zakwa. So like, they had an opportunity to maybe not have Riley Patterson and Michael Badgley. So why has there been this like 2-year carousel of these two guys? And like, I know they re-signed Badgley for a 1-year deal in the offseason. So like he's at least going to get a look.
Yeah.
But like to me, I would not be surprised or unhappy if we used a pick on a kicker, brought in a couple other guys for a tryout, and we're just like, we are spaghetti against the wall until this thing is done.
Yeah.
But like maybe Zakwa has a point here. Maybe Zakwa has struck on something where it's like, oh, they just don't want to, they're just not into kicking field goals or whatever. If that's the case, like let's say that like, so the Lions went for it on 4th down about as often as they punted last year, right?
Yeah.
And they're paying Jack Fox like he's the second highest paid punter in the NFL. Hey, Hatters, I'm right there with you, buddy.
Latu.
I love him. So I think that if you're going to pay a guy like he's the second best at something in the NFL, you should be utilizing him like he's the second best at whatever he's doing in the NFL. And so they seem to want to be aggressive and go for touchdowns, not field goals.
Yep.
You're going to win more games that way if you score more touchdowns. That's just a reality. But if they're not either confident or wanting to kick, then my rationale is then you need to be going for 2-point conversions a lot.
Just as often.
Like if you're going to go for it on 4th, and I think the Lions went for it on 4th and 3 more often than any down and distance, other down and distance, and they had all year last year. I could be wrong, but 4th and 3 seemed like to be the number when I was looking at it. If you're going to do that, then you can go for 2 points.
Yeah, you're at almost the same yardage. It's what, 2?
Right. Yeah. So, in my opinion, if the rationale and your offensive philosophy is we will go for it on 4th down to have a better chance to score a touchdown so that we can win the game more because scoring more points wins us the game more often, then I don't understand how that same rationale does not apply toward we have one chance to convert on 4th down. We have one chance to go for it on a 2-point conversion, same down and distance, same offensive philosophy. And if the other team goes down and scores, appreciate that, Hatters. And if the other team goes down and scores and they kick a field goal, we're still leading.
Yeah. Well, and the opportunity cost on the points is on the extra point. You're missing out on 1 point. Right. Potentially getting 2. The field goal, you're not necessarily going to score a touchdown. Obviously, if you extend your drive, your odds go up. But like that's 3 points you're potentially missing out on if you go for it and miss, versus 1 point at the 2-point conversion, part of the game. So I totally agree that going for 2 far more often. First touchdown of the game, you're up 6-0. What do we do? Go for 2. The next touchdown, go for 2 again. You're probably, if you didn't make it the first time, the odds are you're going to make it the second time, and you're at no different point in the game. You're still at 14 points. But if you make it the first time and you make it the second time, now you're at 16 points, right? Those kind of things add up.
Yeah. So like I could understand, or I could be accepting, I think, of the rationale that like, okay, we're going for touchdowns, not field goals. 6 points is better than 3, right? The difference is 3 points. Yep. Okay, we have one play to get 2 points as opposed to 1. So, I mean,
Joey.
Hey, Joey. I just think that if they're going to be this aggressive, and if who knows what the team is going to really look like next year? Maybe what if they at 29? What if they pick like a great big X receiver like Brian Thomas or Keon Coleman, or I don't know, I'm just throwing out names of gigantic wide receivers. And you've got at least somebody that you're like, okay, here's a lob. Go out jump the 5'10" corner that you're playing against.
Yeah.
You know, like there's
like
that.
Calvin did.
Right.
He had so many fades in the end zone.
Yeah. Like I think now we've established how I feel about Jared Goff. However, I think Jared Goff can throw a 20-yard fade. You know, snap one step,
does.
throw a fade. Right. Because all of the receivers are like 6 feet tall. So I mean, like that's not what they're good at.
Yeah, Joey, will he ever throw them? Maybe. Like we don't have the guys that go up that high.
Right. So I mean, like the biggest wide receiver on the team was Josh Reynolds. Now I believe currently as it stands, it's Donovan Peoples-Jones, and he's like 6'1". So I mean, if you had a 6'3" plus wide receiver that's like a basketball player, basically, who could like go up and like get the ball at the top of the jump or whatever, then you might see them try that. But it's certainly so. Like, to be honest, I want to kind of touch on what Joey just brought up here a little bit, because what Joey's really saying is the offense going to be different just because you add that element to it, right? So here's my opinion. No. This is why I don't think that they need to go wide receiver at 29. Like, do they need an X receiver? No. Why would they? Because they don't want to do that type of thing, in my opinion, right? So, like, they traded up for JMO. He's clearly not a giant jumping out the building kind of player. Maybe it was, but I mean, like, if we can call out the individual plays,
there's not a lot of them.
I mean, right? So here's my opinion. The Lions offense is going to be some amount of the following. You are going to throw the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. Each of those guys is going to get somewhere between 120 and 150 targets. It's just going to be an absolute force feeding over the middle of the field. And you're going to supplement that with your 2 running backs. And that's 4 skill position players that you have to give the ball to. And then you are going to
counting 1 actual wide receiver.
Right. So like, and then JMO might get more of the Josh Reynolds workload. So he had 55 catches, I believe, this last year. Something like that. Like, he might be in line to get up somewhere between like 70 and 80. That's what Josh Reynolds had last year. And that would be a relatively significant bump for him. You know, 1 more catch a game. You know, get up there looking to, hey, Kathy.
Thanks, Kath.
You know, he'd be up to like 4 catches a game. Happy birthday. You know, and then like what room is left on the offense for anybody? We are going into year 3 of JMO, and we're talking about him maybe getting 4 catches a game. I understand he was hurt. I understand he was suspended.
But still, yeah.
So, to Joey's point, if you add, say it's Keon Coleman. So you add Keon Coleman at pick 29, and you run 10 plays a year that are just like, here you go, dude. Here you go, dude. Jump it.
Yeah.
Jump it. You know, or whatever. Like, and it's, you know, 4 of those are touchdowns and 2 of those are 2-point conversions. You know, maybe you're in the Super Bowl. I don't know.
And if you think about the current squad versus what we had the previous 12 years with Stafford, he had Gigantor in Megatron, right? Even Roy Williams was a tall dude that could jump, right? So he had Roy Williams, he had Megatron. Like, he had some of these guys that you could just toss the ball up to and go, he's going to outjump anybody in the league, so you might as well go for it. And so we were able to make that play. But when, you know, 6'1" receivers are the vast majority of your your threats. You're just not going to have that as part of your offense. So to your point, Drew, I think the question is, do you want to change your offense to add that piece, or does that actually just take away? Are you doing like subtraction by addition, right? You're just diluting what you're really good at by trying to have this thing that we just don't do.
So the Lions had a top something offense in the NFL, right?
It was top 5.
Yeah. So
depending on what metric you want to consider as the thing that matters, it's
right.
We'll just call her top 5.
I don't that what happened there didn't change at all.
Yeah.
In this offseason. So my expectation is you go into the draft, you make sure that you've got, you know, some offensive line depth. Your offense is fine. I don't understand we need an X wide receiver. Oh, Donkey Kong. Oh, thank God, showed up. I don't understand this team really needs an X wide receiver because they want the only thing that would make sense to me when I hear someone say that is if the person saying it is like, because it's adding this element that they want to include on the offense. All right, please tell me what the element is.
Right. And what do you want to remove from the offense, or what portion of something that's working do you want to remove to make room for this?
Right. Like, I don't want to not throw the ball 100+ times to St. Brown and Laporta. They showed they could do a really good job.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to be, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't want to take away from running the ball as well as they did. If they're going to run it that well, then you should run the ball.
Get her done. Yeah.
Right. So to me, people are like, we need to add another skill position player. And I'm like, when I set the table for dinner, I only put so much food on it.
Yeah.
You keep adding people to the table. Eventually nobody gets enough to eat. Because there's just not enough more. So the only thing that I can think of that's how do you get the Lions more food on that table for the offense? Because that's how they're going to win games. Your defense has got to get better. And your defense is going to have to give your offense more times, right? Yep. So whether that's turnovers, whether that's getting off the field on third down, whatever it is, your defense has got to get better. Largely, what I am hearing about where the Lions should go as far as the draft is got to have some interior offensive line help. Got to get that X wide receiver position. What about Eric Decker if he's going to transition? I'm starting to hear the Eric Decker, what's going on with Eric Decker? Are we going to re-sign Eric Decker? You know, and so do you want a succession plan in case, you don't want to keep Decker? But this is also the thing that I've heard from, let's be real, Eric Schlitt is my only source on this. I don't have people in the building. So it sounds like the Lions are trying to target for re-signing next year are just Goff, St. Brown, Sewell, Decker, McNeil, somebody else. I don't know. Throw a 6th guy in there. It's insane.
James Houston.
Sure. So there was a mailbag episode on the Detroit Lions. Did I say Eric Decker again? I am so
5 times in a row. That's why I'm just really? Going on. Well, Eric Decker this, Eric Decker that. I'm I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to count it. Anyway, we love you, Drew.
I'm so mad at myself.
And Eric Decker's this is the most press I've had since I retired.
I must be this guy's biggest cheerleader. I was his press secretary in another life. Taylor Decker. I'll just start saying Decker. But
he's going to start calling him Taylor Swift.
So this mailbag episode.
Taylor.
Yeah. Hashtag Taylor. People were so what if you let McNeil walk? What if you let Decker walk in the offseason? What do you do here? Do you go into the draft and try and find an interior defensive lineman? Do you find some way to replace Decker on the offensive line? What do you do? And the guy kept answering, basically was no, from everything I'm hearing, they're going to re-sign everybody. And I'm just I know you can roll cap numbers over, but I mean, like, I just don't see how you have enough money. But I mean, if the New Orleans Saints can be $85 million over, yeah, I assume the Detroit Lions can find a way to sign 5 or 6 guys.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about Taylor Decker.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was necessarily a rumor or if it was, like you said, maybe just a thought experiment. I'll just say rumor of him being on the trade block. Is that a thing that should happen?
So Micro Mike from, what is it? Chat Sports, I think, had this exact, I think Donkey Kong's probably right about this. Had this exact question. So here's what I think about it. Decker is, I believe, 31. He is making 19 against the cap this season in the last season of his extension. So if you are going, like, so you and I were recently discussing like cap number versus cap percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's say you kept what Taylor Decker counts against the cap. I'm not doing it on purpose.
I know.
Let's say that you take what Taylor Decker this year counts against the cap as a percentage of the cap. And you said, we want to keep that percentage for the next 3 years. And that's the contract that we're willing to offer you. So if it's 19, maybe it's something like 21.5 or something like that over 3 years. Backus, yeah. Oh, man. Poor Jeff.
Jeff Backus.
Jeff Backus.
He was solid for us.
Yeah. Went to Michigan. So
true.
I wonder, do you want Decker, who's been good, hurt in spots, but good over his career, through his age 34 season at $22 million a year? That's probably going to be a really solid contract for like a starting NFL tackle. So I go back and forth
19.3 and he was at 19.3 last year. He's at 19.1 this next year. And he currently counts at 7.43% of our cap.
So isn't the cap $330 million next year?
It is 200. What? Why is my math not working? I'm not mathing correctly.
Can't you just look up 2024 NFL salary cap?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at Detroit's on over the cap. So we have a $242.8 million cap liability and $27.6 million in cap space.
275.
So 275.
Okay, so if you've got 275 multiplied by what, 7.3%?
7.43%.
It's 19 and a quarter.
Yeah, 19.1.
Okay,
is what OTC lists.
So let me ask you this: if you kept the same percentage of that can't be right. The cap can't go up, and his numbers stay the same. That just can't be right.
What do you mean?
So if he's making 19.1 this year, and the cap went up by $30 million, and he makes the same percentage of cap, his new number can't be effectively the same number that he made this year. That just doesn't. That's not correct. That's not real math. So we made a mistake somewhere.
His current. Let me remove the banner again. Boop, boop, boop. Zoom in. His current number is 7.4%. Last year it was 8.5.
All right. So if I was his camp, I would say we want an 8.5%. Okay. So the cap is $255 million. Okay. So 255 times 0.084, $21.4 million. So it would be $64.2 million over 3 years through his age 34 season. So what about you guys in the chat? Would you re-sign Decker at effectively 21.5 for the next 3 years? Or would you try and trade him? Those are the two choices. And remember, this is Taylor Decker, not Eric. Eric was a wide receiver for the Jets. He's been out of the league.
Long since retired.
He has no bearing on this. I don't know why I can't get him out of my head. It's a dreamboat. Who knows? Donkey Kong says neither. Okay, well, Donkey Kong, what would you do, man?
Let me try to share the screen properly here. So what number did you say? 21?
Yeah, let's say 21.5. Why would you? Okay, so why would Decker play cheaper than that? If you're Taylor Decker and you said, I signed to make $19 million in 2023 3 years ago.
When I was 3 years younger.
Right? Why would I play for less than that now?
Because you're 3 years older.
But where has his leverage gone? How has his leverage changed? How has his leverage gotten worse? He's just gotten older. He's maintained the same level of play.
That's a piece of it.
You're not going to.
I think the other.
Go ahead.
I'll say the other piece of it is if we cared that much, we could try to draft a tackle in the the draft. When you look at like 21 something, I mean, is he a top 4 tackle? Is he right behind Trent Williams?
No, I would say not.
No, he is.
But nor would I say.
Seems about right.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say that he probably signs for a similar number cap hit. I don't think he's a top 10 tackle. I don't even think he's a top 15 tackle. He's probably right around 15. But I think that he's going to end up in that similar number. I just don't see. Now, granted, this is AAV, right? Which is a little bit different than cap hit, just based on all the shenanigans you can do with caps and void years and all that kind of nonsense. I just don't see him up in that Trent Williams area. And I think that's kind of what Donkey Kong's getting at, is that he'll play cheaper than that because we can't like, and also like you said, we're not gonna be able to afford to pay everybody top 10 money, top 5 money.
So Taylor Decker, as far as pass blocking, true pass set pass blocking this year, was the 11th best tackle in the NFL.
What was his overall grade?
I had that. His overall grade this season was 77.3. So he has averaged over the last 5 years a grade somewhere between 74 and 82, but typically in the mid 70s. So let's look at run blocking. Now, please note, this is not me trying to pitch the idea that they should re-sign Taylor Decker. But I do think he's better than we are maybe giving him credit for. So shockingly, Penei Sewell was the number 1 rated run blocking tackle in the NFL, and Decker came in at 33rd for run blocking. So you had the number 1 guy and you had the number 33 guy. So 32 teams in the NFL, that's 64 tackles. Decker is right smack dab in the middle of all those starting tackles as far as run grade, and he's a top 11 tackle as far as pass blocking this last year. So like, I don't know if I'm Taylor Decker and I'm Taylor Decker's agent, I don't know where I should have to give up any money, because the numbers are saying that my play is not falling off. Yeah. The numbers are saying my play is as good now as it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I ask for more money?
Yeah, this is the overall offensive grade.
It's not Eric Donkey Kong. It's Taylor. Get it right.
I think Donkey Kong is trolling just a teeny bit.
Yeah, I know what he's doing.
But yeah, so Taylor is 10th on the overall, right?
Yeah.
This is the overall grade was 81.1. That was 10th overall. Pass block, he was 17th overall. And then where did you say he was run block wise?
So I was looking up a different stat than you were, but like it was like 33rd.
Gotcha. I should have. Here, let's do this. He is 73.9. So he was tied for 20th.
So those are better numbers than what I quoted.
Yeah, better numbers than I thought they were as well. I was thinking he was in that 15 range, and he's actually closer to 10. Actually at 10.
Does it help that he is playing on a line with Ragnow and Sewell? And Graham Glasgow is not an all-pro, but he's not some bitch either, you know?
Right.
So, like, he's playing with other good people, you know? And for all of Goff's nonsense, like, he is not holding the ball for 10 seconds. You know, he as far as the, like, get the ball out of your hands quickly crowd. Hey, Pat. He does a relatively good job of getting the snap and getting the ball out in a timely manner. You know, he's not going to run around back there and try and create out a structure. So what I'm saying, okay, so what would worthy compensation for Eric Decker look like? So he's not going to make it to I know Trent Williams kind of made it onto the open market or whatever. I don't remember if he was actually traded from Philadelphia to San Francisco, but like a guy like Taylor Decker does not make it to the unrestricted free agent market often. Right. So I doubt that, you know what? Hey, Mike, the other thing that he might be better at. So like, let's say he was going at 21.5, right? That's like the number that we kind of, assumed at let's look at what is the tag number. Tag right there.
Oh, yeah.
So if you tag an offensive lineman in 2024, that was 20.9. So I'd save $1.5 million if I just tag him. Now it's going to be more next year, right? Because it'll go up as the cap goes up. And as the top five thing is, the top five at the position work their way out. But you could just tag him for a year.
One of the things I want to talk about, though, is Donkey Kong's comment about Decker as a lifer.
Sure.
And I think there is some cultural things there, too, like what Brad and Dan are trying to do. Like, they made it very clear that playoff win was not just for the city of Detroit and whatnot, but it was for Taylor Decker. And it was, those guys that have been there through the previous regime and the previous disappointment, like their whole career, he's been there. And I think it would be very difficult for them to say that after a playoff win and talk about that and then go, yeah, we're just going to cut bait because we can find somebody a couple $1 million cheaper. Like, I think there's some culture building, and like that's why you want to come to a place like this and maybe play for cheaper than you can go play some shittier place. Like, why go to Carolina when you can, for $1 million a year more, or you can go to Detroit for $1 million a year less, and they're going to treat you the way that you want to be treated. So I would be shocked if we put him on the trade block to get a second round pick that we might use on a developmental tackle or something. I'd be shocked. It just doesn't seem the way that Brad and Dan operate.
And Pat is correct. We do not have any comp picks, which is an excellent segue, right?
Segue. Let's do it.
So how do you earn comp picks, Mike?
You have value signed in the free agent market somewhere else. Yeah. And based on that, It's just I'm sorry. Here, let me give you a sucker for your loss.
Right. So there's effectively 8 rounds to the NFL draft. There's the 7 rounds that are all structured, and then the NFL hands out 30, 32 comp picks, which effectively comprise an 8th round, as it were, in total overall
It's
picks.
scattered.
Right.
Starting at the earliest is the 3rd round.
The best you can get is a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
So the Lions had a relatively highly prized free agent this offseason in Jonah Jackson, right? Jonah was not re-signed. Jonah hit the open market. He signed for $17 a year with the LA Rams. Well, we should get a comp pick for Jonah Jackson, right? Good player, high.
I would think so.
Multiple. We're not going to. Do you know why?
Because we signed enough, right?
Yes. So here's kind of the basic idea, and this is super basic. You have to be an unrestricted free agent. Okay, so like let's look at a player like Justin Simmons from the Broncos, right? Season ends, the Broncos want to get under the cap before the new league year. They cut Justin Simmons. He's a safety. The Lions could sign Justin Simmons, and it would not affect their comp pick formula because he is not an unrestricted free agent. He was cut. You could trade for a player. Carlton Davis, anybody? And Carlton Davis is not going to count against your comp pick formula because he's not an unrestricted free agent. So this is where we have to start. It's how many unrestricted free agents did you lose versus how many unrestricted free agents did you sign? Okay, that's step 1. Step 2, those unrestricted free agents have to fall in the top 35% of average annual, it's AAV, whatever that stands for.
Annual and average annual value of their contract.
Yes. So it can't just
total
be
contract divided by number of the total years.
Right. So you can't just be the back end of the contract guys, right? That's not who we're talking about. We are talking about players of quality who have played a lot, who have played well, and got paid for their service. Those are the unrestricted free agents that matter when it comes to determining whether or not you're going to get comp picks. Okay. So if the Lions wanted to cultivate comp picks, which at some point in the future they might, maybe the roster currently isn't at a point where they feel like they can cultivate compensatory picks. Jeez. Red leather, yellow leather. Okay, so perhaps the Lions roster will be in that kind of position at the end of Lee McNeil, Amon-Ra St. Brown's next contract 3-4 years from now. So I'm going to share my screen. Present. Share screen. These are the picks, the players that the Detroit Lions lost and gained this season that count in the unrestricted top 35% system.
Do you want me to actually put it on the screen?
Did it not do it?
It did not.
It says I'm sharing.
You were sharing, but it wasn't yet. We're there now.
Great. Good job, Mike. So we lost Jonah Jackson, who signed for $17 a year, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who signed for 11, inexplicably 11, and Josh Reynolds, who signed for 4.5. We gained Marcus Davenport at 6.5, DJ Reader at 11, Kevin Zeitler at 6, Amik Robertson at 4.63. So the way, and I'm not going to get into the reads here, but like these players have canceled each other out, and we have one more player in the gained category than we do in the lost category. So the way that the NFL looks at it, the Detroit Lions do not need any compensatory picks because we have already signed more players than we lost. So we're good. Why would you need help? So, however, teams like Baltimore, San Francisco, Dallas, Green Bay are constantly turning over their roster.
Yep.
And so they are developing comp picks while they are doing that because they're willing to let guys walk out the door. And they're either signing players who were cut by other teams, or they are signing players who fall outside of that top 35% AAV window so that they don't count against their comp formula. And they're being rewarded with, I mean, I think Dallas has 4 comp picks in this.
Was it the Niners have like 9?
Class. Well, I don't think that
year?
I don't think you can be given that many.
That's
But
a lot.
So projected comp picks for 2000. So we just had this class. So this is next year's draft, not the one in 3 weeks, but the year after. San Francisco is projected to have a 3rd, a 5th, and 2 7ths. Miami is going to get a 3rd for Christian Wilkins, a 3rd for Robert Hunt, and a 7th for Deshaun Elliott, former Lion Deshaun Elliott. And Dallas is going to get a 5th. Dallas is going to get 3 5ths and a 6th.
Yeah.
The
Niners are going to get 5 picks. The Rams are going to get 4 picks. The Eagles are going to get 4 picks. Green Bay, New Orleans, and the Jets will all get 3 picks. The Bengals, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, and the Chiefs will all get 2.
So you must be looking at this year's picks.
Yeah, for this year. Yeah. The Cards, the Ravens, and the Bills will all get 1.
Yeah.
So maybe I was thinking the Niners had like 9 over the last 2 years or something like that. But there's 5. They're going to get 5 extra picks this year. 2 in the 3rd, 2 in the 5th, and 1 in the 6th. Well,
Pat seems to be on the same wavelength with me because he and you and I were speaking about this a little bit earlier in the show, Mike. Top 30 visits. So I'm going to once again attempt to share my screen.
Don't worry, guys. I'll make it work.
Is it showing?
It is now.
Okay. I don't know why that doesn't work when I do it, but
I'll tell you later.
Okay. So the people that the Lions, this is once again from Pride of Detroit. So if you want to go to the source, this is the best source for Lions material that I have found. They're good journalists and they're all about the Lions. So I would go here. I don't know that I would go anywhere else. Top 30 visits that are scheduled so far. Christian Boyd, DT, Northern Iowa. Never heard of him. Cornerback, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Alabama. Heard of him. Corner, Quantez Stigers from the CFL. They've already signed 1 CFL player in Matthew Betts. So they might sign another. Cornerback, Naheem Pritchett, Auburn. Quarterback, Andrew Phillips, Kentucky. Safety, Sione Vaki, Utah. The people
offensive players.
Yeah. Not a one. So, I think this is telling, which means they either already know which offensive players they're going to target, or for whatever reason, they just haven't scheduled those guys yet. Right?
Lions. There's plenty of time. Days and days worth.
Days of time. Local time, Lions local day, Roman Wilson from Michigan, Barnhart from Michigan, Keegan from Michigan. Who else do we recognize on here? Aurora Rowe from Clemson, Darius Robinson from Missouri. A lot of Michigan guys because they're really close. I mean, they're less than an hour away. Who else do we recognize on this list? Not a ton. They brought in Xavier Leggett, Brian Thomas, Devontae Walker. Those are all wide receivers that you could see either day 1 or day 2 picks. This is an interesting one. Kingsley Sumanatala from BYU. I believe that's Penei Sewell's cousin. Marshawn Nealon from Western, Darius Robinson again, Braylon Trice from Washington. I like him quite a lot. Johnny Newton would be an absolute home run. That's like baby Jalen Carter as far as I'm concerned. Quinion Mitchell would be a player that I would look to trade up for in the draft. So I think that there are some players that the Lions are targeting with like secondary interviews, secondary workouts that could really, I think, affect this roster. So they have to draft the CB from the CFL. They do not. They do not have to draft that guy. They can just sign him to a contract. So that's fine.
Who's up for a mock draft? Speaking of drafts and picks, are you going to turn down a mock draft, Drew?
Fuck no. Are you serious?
That's
insulting to ask me.
I know. It was fun though. Let me see if I can find it. All right. So I will present my screen.
Yeah, do that.
All right,
not so easy. Oh, there it is.
Right. So first, this was if anybody didn't get a chance to check out last week's episode, we had a blast. A mock draft, you say? Says Hatters?
I'm really coming around on Hatters. He's starting to be one of my favorites.
But yeah, so we did a first round mock draft, and I took 2 divisions. Drew took 2, and then we had A6, my buddy Brian, and then a couple of my friends. That's Cards fan that did the NFC West, and an Eagles fan that did the NFC East. This was a lot of fun. It was full trades and everything else. I thought this was pretty great. What were, for anybody that didn't get a chance to check it out, Drew, what was like your big, I guess, takeaway or the shocker thing that you're like, check out last episode, watch what happened here?
Well, I'm trying to pick something that I didn't do.
Were you part of the Lions trade?
No, that was Brian and whoever had the AFC East. So that was Brian and Justin. A6.
A6, yeah.
So I do think
I thought that was a great one.
Yeah. I do think that Bo Nix at 18 is rich for me with Bo Nix. I don't know. I hated the Zach Frazier. So I see some people see Zach Frazier as a guard. I don't. I see him as a center only. Now Dallas needs a center, but it's the second center in the first round, and I'm just like, I didn't like it much. Outside of this, what I thought about this was largely, I think this is closer to what you'll actually see on draft day in the sense that it's not just a chalk mock draft. Like, here's where they're picking. Here's the consensus board. We're going to match as close to 1-to-1 as we can all the way down. Dominoes are falling.
Right.
Whatever. Because people are going to make decisions that we couldn't possibly have predicted. And that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
And so like when you get a group of 6 people together and you're like, here, throw your decisions into the mix. Like I think you get closer to the chaos that is the real thing. But as far as accuracy is concerned, that's still a crapshoot.
We only know one of one, right?
Yeah. I don't even know that we put $1 in on that one,
Yeah. Brock Bowers was the shocker to me. He dropped all the way to 12, and I did not expect him to drop outside of the top 10.
Yeah, I was thinking, because I had the Bengals, and the Bengals are at 18 or 19, I think it's 18. And I was just like, you've got T. Higgins for at least one more year. Maybe they move Higgins during the draft. I don't know. I don't think they will. They lost Tyler Boyd, their number 3 wide receiver, who is a good player, who is kind of lost in the shuffle in this whole T. Higgins thing. And if I am getting ready to make Joe Burrow the highest paid player. We are going into his contract years. Right? So I need to make sure Burrow has no drop off in receiving talent. I'm going to have to pay Jamar Chase. I might as well get somebody over the middle of the field because Jamar Chase is a on the outside deep ball. He's just great. He can pretty much do anything he wants. But like, I want to give Justin. Oh God.
It's Taylor Decker. It's Taylor. Oh wait, not that.
I want to give Joe Burrow as many weapons as humanly possible for as long as I can. And if I have to move up 6 spots to get a guy that I think should be a top 10 pick, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I hope you two will have a mock draft before the draft. We're going to do that here in just a few seconds.
Yeah, we're going to do it now, but I think we'll probably do next week. I'm going to be gone, so I'm not sure what Drew will do. I'm going to be on vacation.
We might just do a bunch of mock drafts.
There's going to be
7 rounds.
The following week, right, is the draft?
Yeah, so we will have the week that you're gone, and then we'll do a show the week of the draft.
Yep, and Tuesday, and then the draft is on Thursday. So we're gonna have a double header, guys. Tuesday, our regular show, and then Thursday, live reactions and fun gambling.
Do it 2025. No. You have no idea the work I had to put in to get Mike to learn the names for this year's mocks.
Hey, now.
So, I mean,
you're not wrong.
But like, I'll do a 2025 mock pretty much the week after the draft. Usually websites get their simulator set up to do that kind of thing right away.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. So, all right, Mike, let's do it.
All right. So, Pat says a 7-round draft.
We can do that.
Not for all of them, but we will do them for the Lions.
Right.
Right in the middle for a lot of the stuff, drafting for needs, and
sure.
Fairly low on randomness or high.
That I think bumping it up a notch makes it just a little bit closer to the where the actual thing will be. So that sounds fine to me.
All right, we ready to go?
I am. I'm ready.
Just the loins. We're gonna do just the loins, Pat.
Lions. Yep. Make it bigger. There it is. Oh, that's pretty quick.
We're gonna do 7 rounds. All
right,
right, so let's do a quick review.
Yeah.
JJ goes 2. I just don't see that.
I love it.
I just don't see
Get ready for me to get super fucking loud if that happens on draft night.
So Caleb, JJ, Drake May, Neighbors, that makes sense. Alt, that's an interesting one. I figured it would be either Brock Wright or I cannot believe.
Seeing that,
no.
That's
where the randomness comes in, right?
Right. That's pretty random.
Let's see who else. Jared Verse goes early.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Daniels goes. Look at that. Minnesota didn't even have to trade up to get a top quarterback.
Yeah, if I have one complaint about PFF's mock draft simulators, that they won't simulate trades. They will have options available to the people doing the draft, but to NPCs teams won't trade. Other sites like Pro Football Network, you can have that happen. So, oh wow, Guyton win at 23. I don't like that pick for them at all.
Well, they need somebody to take care of Jaden.
They don't actually. They have 2 really good tackles. They have Brian O'Neill and Christian Harrison. Right. So I mean, that's just unless you're going to play your 6'7" guard.
Oh, this makes me sad. Right in front of us, Cooper DeJean.
So this is an easy pick, I think.
Jackson?
Well, so let's scroll down, but like, just keep
Johnny
scrolling.
Mitchell,
just keep scrolling.
Conkey. Franklin, maybe.
Did McKinstry go? Yeah, there he is at 21. Yeah, so this is a pretty easy pick. If the board falls this way for me and I'm the Lions, like, I'm just going to take Jackson Powers Johnson. Well, I wouldn't run to the podium. I would field trade calls. But, like, I also think that, like...
You'd have the phone on your hand as you're walking to the podium, right?
I mean, like, I do think that it's something to the effect of, like, yeah, I would take calls. But, like, if I don't get an offer that I'm in love with, like, I'm super happy to just be like, nah, I'm going to shut this down and go draft this kid. And then
what kind of trade would you looking for?
I would want something like, I would think that if someone is trading up for him, it's hard to say. I mean, it depends on where you're gonna trade down to. But let's say it's like
So they've got LA at 44 and Dolphins at 55. That seems like a far drop.
So if you're going to trade down 15 picks, I want obviously the pick that team has next, the pick 15 pick spots down.
Yeah.
And I would probably want something like a 3 and maybe like a 6th on top of it. Because I have to consult that stupid asinine 30-year out of date chart to see what's equal. I don't want goddamn equal. I want
value. You're coming to me, man. You want the 29.
I get a tax. You're not going to get a first.
I didn't have first.
Well, Hannah's is like 24-2 and a 25 first. You're not going to get
gotcha.
that to move down 15 spots in the for a center effectively. So like we're not going to trade. But like,
all right, JPJ.
Yeah, so like you would play him at left guard. He would be Ragnow's backup. And if Ragnow decides to retire, you just slide him over to center. So Pat, here's where I would push back on that mentality just a little bit, is that I do not believe that any team in the NFL has graded 32 players in this class or any class for that matter to be worthy of a first round pick. Okay. So let's just say, for the sake of this argument, that the Detroit Lions have something like between 18 and 25 players that they think are first round caliber players in this year's draft. And by the time that they get to pick 29, those players are gone. Now, in this particular example, I think that JPJ would be on that list, right? But for the sake of argument, let's just say the board didn't fall that way. So what is the difference between, if you're not going to take a first round player in the first round, what is the difference between taking a player at 29 and 45? The only difference is cost, right? So if I can get what I consider to be in that range between 29 and 45, a similar caliber player, but I can get it at less and I can get another pick back, that benefits me more than just sitting there and taking a player at 29. Now, to your point, if there is a player that they have as a first round pick on the board for them at 29, then I would say you probably stick and just take that player. So in this case, the way the board fell, I would say I would be hard pressed to say I don't think that the Detroit Lions in particular would not have a first round grade on Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem sticking.
Yeah, and I think at this point in the draft, in that 28, 29, that 28 to 32 range, you typically don't see a ton of trades, because the people that are trying to, someone's got to fall, right? There's got to be somebody that somebody really wants at 29 that they couldn't get in the 30s or early 40s, right? And once you start getting into that area, it's kind of a crapshoot. So maybe there's somebody they really had their heart set on, but the odds are they're gonna be like, well, if that guy goes, there's gonna be other options for us in this band of player performance and capabilities. So I think that's got to be a little bit tough to do. And then also, I think you also have to look at the cost to moving up and whether that's worth it. When it comes to fifth year option, right? Like, so if you move into the first round, even if you move up 6 spots from the early 30s to 29 to get that guy that you really want, that you don't know if he's going to get there 6 spots later when you're in the second round, all of a sudden there's a cost to that. There's extra year, that fifth year option. There's some value there that maybe that team isn't looking to spend. So I think that's probably why you don't see a ton of those trades in that like 28 to 32 range. It's usually just not worth it unless somebody crazy fell and you're just like, he's not going to fall enough. So I think that's where, like, I'd be shocked if the Lions don't draft there. The exception to that is I could see us trading that for an established existing player, kind of like the Rams did with Jalen Ramsey. They're like, I want a starting quarterback. I'll give you our first, right? I think we either pick at 29 or we have traded for like T. Higgins, and that was part of the compensation.
So here's where I'll push back on that is that like, so Pat has thrown out the idea like still missing a lot of talent. So if you trade down and you get two players in the range of like 29 and 45, I mean, how much better does the player you have to be at that you pick at 29 be than both of those guys? You know, so like, you remember this is Brad Holmes we're talking about. Like he's found dudes at literally every level of the draft. Like I think that like arming a person like Trent Baalke from Jacksonville with multiple mid or later round picks is a real mistake because he sucks. But you give those picks to somebody like Brad Holmes, who appears to be a solid evaluator of talent, and all of a sudden, like you're finding the Amon-Ra St. Browns and like guys that contribute like Melifonwu, Barnes, St. Brown, you know, like those guys. So like I don't necessarily agree that like they'd be missing out on a lot of talent. I understand where you're coming from. So we don't have a 4th round pick. I can see Brad's. Yeah, no, Brad's pretty aggressive, I would say, when it comes to like moving around the board on draft day. So if he manages to pick up another 4th round pick somewhere, or I wouldn't be shocked at all. I can't predict him. I know that.
He's got his guys, right?
Right.
They've done their job. Like I don't know if you remember the video, the kind of the behind the scenes video where they were talking with Sheila about, well, there's that kid and that we still have on the board, and they were talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like they had their guys picked all the way through the draft, so it wouldn't be shocking if they start making some of those moves in there for some of those guys that they really had their eye on.
So let's get back to this pick.
Yeah, so 61, we snagged an interior offensive lineman. Defense is really a big piece to what we need to do to get better. What are we thinking here, guys?
Well, I'd like you to keep scrolling down just a little bit. Okay. So I think there's two, well, there's more than two, but like I think that you've got some choices here. So like I think if this is the Lions board, I think you might want to go with like an edge like Marshawn Nealand or Braylon Trice from Washington, depending on who you like more there. So I think Trice is closer to a Pascal, and Nealand is closer to, well, I don't know how big Nealand is, to be honest, but like I've heard he's like going to be closer to a James Houston.
So they don't have a shades of for Trice.
I mean, he's 6'4", 270. I mean, like he's a little bit shorter than Aiden. You know.
Yeah, I thought maybe they had a current comp kind of player.
6'3", 275. So like they're similar builds. They have similar pass rush win rates, which is kind of the metric that I look at. So, I mean, to be honest, like if I was going to go, like I would probably side on the fact that Trice played for Washington as opposed to like Nealand playing for Western. Like I trust those numbers translating a little bit better. I mean, they got Kyrie Jackson as far as the corner is concerned. Like I know people like Max Melton. I'm not a Max Melton guy. This guy's just huge. He's just enormous.
I like that. Give you a starting caliber corner with a shutdown skill set.
So I think that what you're likely to see here, because of the trade for Carlton Davis, is that the Lions are probably going to go with some kind of developmental corner. Because I think that, oh, by the way, Carlton Davis is lying for a contract extension next year too. He makes $14 million this year. So Hatters would go Trice. I'm leaning Trice as well. He seems to be in that physical mold that they seem to they like. Of course, so is Nealand. But yeah, I think
you do have a hometown boy, right? He's from Grand Rapids.
I don't care.
Went to Western.
I don't care.
Yeah, go with the better one, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go with Trice.
Okay, so now I would be looking. Now I would be looking to see if there's a corner worth like for this pick. So if you look at, so their next pick is they don't have a pick for 3 rounds after this pick. So you have to get a guy like Jackson from FSU.
Just somebody I filtered out. Or maybe he's talking about the previous. Should we take Blake Corum?
No.
Can never have too many running backs.
You can actually.
We thought that last year, Drew. You don't know.
I do.
So, cornerbacks. All right. Because that's probably where we're looking at right now, right?
So I mean, if I had my picks, I know that I know Andrew Phillips is on their top 30 visit list. So I would probably just take Andrew Phillips here.
All right, let's do it.
And now three rounds are going to come off the board. He's a CB.
Is there anybody on that list that we want to pause and offer a trade for because they're a solid third-ish round?
So if you're gonna trade into like the 3rd round back into day 2, basically at this point, you're gonna have to give up a pick in a future year. Okay. So I know who I would take here.
Did you take Zach Zinter?
Well, I do like Zach Zinter, largely because he went to Michigan, and he's good. Can you keep scrolling for me? Okay. So here's the thing. I would probably draft JP Bertrand from Notre Dame. I know he's a linebacker, but you have to re-sign Derek Barnes next year, right? So if you don't do that, you could use another developmental linebacker. He would be an excellent special teamer. And you know it's objective because he went to Notre Dame.
Right. And you're saying take him because you're not drafting the helmet, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just so like the reason why I would say this is because he kind of fits that, like, he's just a football player. This is a football player, right? We are in round 5?
About that. Yeah. 164.
So like we're at the end of round 5.
Round 5, pick 29.
So if you're gonna take Zinter, you've now taken 2 guards.
Yep.
And so Zinter is your backup interior offensive lineman, right? So your offensive line is Decker, Zietler, Ragnow, Glasgow, Penny Sewell. That's 5. And then your backups are Skipper, Sorsdal, Awosika, Jackson Powers Johnson, Zinter. So you don't have a
JPJ. Yeah. So does JPJ actually take a guard position, a starting guard position?
So I think that what you would do is you would go to camp and you would see who outperforms Zietler or JPJ.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're potentially taking not just one backup offensive lineman, but 2 if we take a Zinter here.
So if you're the Lions and you just want to keep adding decent like players to the roster, I would see somebody like JD Bertrand as somebody that's like, this guy's just a good dude, whatever. He can play special teams for us. And then maybe he works into like one of the linebacker cycles at some point, like a year from now. but this is a pick for a year from now. It's not a pick for this year. Now, if you wanted to take like somebody that I think that they are looking at a position they're actually looking to add, I think you might want to take a look at Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest, because you have your secondary, as far as safeties are concerned. Guys that you can have play there are Mel Fonwu, Kirby Joseph, and if you need to put Branch back at a safety position, you could have him play there. But you cut Tracy Walker and you let Chauncey Gardner-Johnson walk. So you have there is a need for depth here. And so like this looks like a dude that like is going to come up and play well in run defense. The Lions are going to prize that. So same thing with this guy as far as Bertrand. Is this just a dude who can like be a backup for us, primarily be a special teamer?
I guess which one do we think, and this is probably their thought process as well, which one do we think will have the most long-term impact on the team?
Well, I mean, like, I think that I would probably go with Mustafa, but like, I do think that Bertrand is the better player.
Mustafa.
So like, I don't know if that's how you say it. It looks like how you say it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a Lion Kingism. I'm cool with going with Mustafa here.
The CB pick, the Andrew Phillips, because he got taken 10 spots ahead of where he was on the board.
The Rams take Joe Milton with pick 196. Interesting.
Sure. So we're going to get 2
all right.
picks in the next 5.
So do we want to take a look at wide receiver?
No.
Little depth there. Do we want to take a look at corner?
Well, we've already drafted 1 corner. I don't think it's a bad pick.
Any special teamers?
Let's just go look at the board here real quick, just like without looking at position group real fast.
So Pat, when you say bad pick, are you talking about the one that we just did, taking the safety?
I think he's talking about the Andrew Phillips pick, but from the 3rd round.
Oh.
But I mean, like, I don't know why. I mean, like, the guy's on the top 30 of visits for the Lions.
Am I completely missing it?
You're just not there yet.
Yeah. There it is, 73.
Click on him. Yeah, this guy from Kentucky. Yeah. Why don't you like him? 6 foot, 190 pounds.
I think he's saying that maybe we overdrafted him.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then we took him 10 spots higher than he was, quote unquote, slated to go, but in the 3rd round. I mean, like,
yeah.
I mean, by the same metric, you then overdrafted Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta.
Jack Campbell for sure.
Last year as well. So I mean, like, I don't know that the Lions care about that so much. I think that they would rather say, like, that's a player that we want on the team. I don't particularly care what the consensus board says. Our board says he's this guy. No, but that's, I mean, true. Like, yeah, that does. You're right. It doesn't mean that necessarily means that they're going to draft him. I would say though that, like, if you bring a guy in, it's because you want more information about him, good or bad. We're trying to eliminate him. We're trying to put him on our top of our board, right? So if I'm a GM of a team, I would be looking to try and gain more information on players that I want to add than players that I want to eliminate, right? So, like, to me, I think the top 30 visit is these guys have arrows pointed up on them as far as the Lions' interest in acquiring them.
Yeah, and at the board at the time, there wasn't much in that range that also was somebody that we have any knowledge that they were looking at, right?
Yeah. So, I mean...
so who are we looking at in round 6?
Click on Rogers just real quick. That's
guy.
Cody Schrader.
Justin Rogers.
Just go to first look. 6'3", 340. So he's a nose. We don't need another nose. Yeah.
Now here's a guy.
So I don't think you need a halfback. I mean, I honestly don't think like quote unquote needs, right? Like, excuse me. At this point in the draft, like I don't think that you're looking for like needs. I think that you're looking for is either like you have a guy that has a particular kind of trait that you want to develop, or you think it's going to help you as a backup or a special teamer. So like, I don't know. I mean, like, I would be surprised if you found a guy.
Like, I think we're going to take at least one wide receiver in this draft.
Well, I mean, like they have already. I mean, so if just to take a guy,
for depth, like I'm not sure they're necessarily sold on. Who did we take in like the 6th round last year?
Antoine Green.
Like I think it's going to be all right. Let's find somebody that can fight with Antoine Green and see which one of them. I mean, they're 6th round draft choices, so it's kind of a no harm, no foul. But let's see if we can get the best person for the reason that we snagged Green.
I mean, to me,
if St. Brown goes down, we're screwed.
Sure.
How do we become unscrewed? A little bit more.
They're not going to be unscrewed if you take Dominique Lovett in round 6, you know?
I mean, unless he's another, St. Brown. Not that I would expect him to be a top 5 or top 10 wide receiver, but like if he's outplays his draft position, I think this is, I could see that. So Pat, these are the top wide receivers.
Yeah. So to me, like if the draft goes like this, you see who's out there waiting for like a contract offer.
Yeah.
That wide receiver. Like, so like I know that the Bengals let Tyler Boyd walk, and like he's not an X receiver by any stretch of the imagination, but I would rather throw $2-3 million a year at Tyler Boyd than draft any of the guys that were just on that list. So like we're not going to draft a quarterback. So,
what about tight end?
No, they're not.
Well, they just re-signed Brock Wright.
Yeah.
Edge.
Well, we
gotta take somebody, right?
You took Braylon Trice.
Tackle. So
I don't mind Caden Wallace from Penn State. Trente Jones from Michigan. Like I watched every snap that Trente Jones has ever played. So like I think those are fine tackles. And like maybe Pat's right. Like maybe like having like a developmental tackle, swing tackle on the roster is a good idea. So like let's scroll down just a little bit more.
It maybe just a guy like Thomas or Wallace or Jones is just going to be a cheaper and just as good version of Awasika that we potentially can develop. We have a little bit more time to develop.
Yeah, I would take Caden Wallace, to be honest. I mean, just my preference.
All right, let's go with Caden Wallace.
They're picking 4 picks, so I mean. All right, Mike, have fun.
Oh, this one's me, huh?
It's all you, because I know who I'm going to want next pick.
You know who you're going to want next pick?
Yeah.
Who does he kick for?
Missouri.
I think an edge rusher.
Sure.
Is probably the way to go. Yeah, let's go with edge. We're going to go with SC.
Sure.
Look at all those compensatory picks.
So good. Special teams. Harrison Mevis. They don't do stats for kickers at PFF.
Well, I figured they'd have stats even if they didn't have grades.
It's a kicker.
Yeah, it's just stats. It's raw stats you can import from freaking everywhere.
They're doing other stuff, man.
So he's the guy?
I mean, to be honest, like this guy or Ricard, like I think either one of them are probably, they're on the board. They're one spot apart, and both of those spots are 60 picks after the last guy in the NFL should get drafted,
Yeah.
But like, I would just be like, this guy's going to come into the building. He was decent in college, or he's at least going to kick against Badgley.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about him earlier, Pat. I don't know if you were on at the time. Oh, they liked my Solomon Bird pick.
Good.
This would be an unsexy draft class.
Well, they don't need
nothing that you're going to get. Well, I know, but it's nothing that you're going to be excited over. Like, I was excited over basically all three of. Well, I wasn't super excited about our first round this past year, but like I was excited about the Branch pick. I thought that was really good. I thought there was, while I was surprised that the pick for Gibbs was there, I was a little bit excited to go, all right, well, we've got him. It wouldn't have been what I did, but I'm excited to see what he can do. And of course, the previous couple picks or a couple years were Hutch and Sewell and those guys. So like, I've been excited for the last 3 years of draft classes. This would not excite me. Does this make us better? Probably. Yeah, I think it does. But it's not an exciting draft. You're drafting third from the end of every single round, right? You're always going to get the worst of that round's draft picks. Yeah, so it's probably going to be tough.
It's different when you're picking at 7 and then 2 and then 6. Even if they traded out of 6. But like just what you mentioned, like they're picking at the tops of those rounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're getting the 7th player and then like the 42nd player.
Yeah.
Not
like, the 29th and the 58th.
Right. So like
61st. Must have
been a trade. So like I don't need the draft to be sexy. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's entertaining. But I would rather have a draft like this with no surprises. Oh, they do? That's neat. The CFL guy?
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So we drafted Andrew Phillips, but Max Melton was on the board.
Yeah, it's because they have Max Melton higher on their consensus board. By like.
That's interesting. That actually gives you like what they why they were disappointed in certain things. I don't remember that. Is that a new feature?
It is, as of last week.
Oh, right on. Thank you, PFF. That's pretty cool. At least it gives me some context as to why you hated what I did.
Well, first of all, I mean, like, PFF is going, like, their draft coverage is going to be like, I don't understand why you would take this corner when, like, this other corner is, like, rated 10 spots higher on the consensus, right? Like, they are going to approach value from the idea of the consensus board.
Yeah.
And that's always going to create division because every team in the NFL has their own internal board, right? And by definition, their internal board cannot be the same as the consensus, right? Because the consensus is effectively an average, of a bunch of different things. And so, like, one of the narratives that we have heard a bunch this year is that, like, the NFL feels differently about a player like JJ McCarthy than, say, the NFL media does, right? So NFL media might have JJ as the 35th player on the consensus board, but like he's the betting favorite to be the 2nd overall pick in the draft. So like,
that's crazy.
There's a disparity there. So like, what's more real? I would tend to think what the NFL thinks is more real if you can corroborate it. But that's just the problem. Like, who's saying stuff? Just like, are people saying things right now like Jim Harbaugh, right? Like, if Jim Harbaugh has said JJ's the best quarterback in the draft, like you should take him because he's the best overall quarterback prospect that he could possibly imagine coaching or whatever. Is Jim trying to inflate JJ's value so that if there was some opportunity for the Chargers to trade out of 5 and get a better haul? I mean, that shit happens.
Yep.
So, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't think so, but that stuff happens. So, knowing what's real and what's not, we won't know until draft night, or what have you. But like, I don't think JJ McCarthy's going to, and if they had a Emory Hunt, what does he do? What site does he work for? A site? How long ago was that sent? 20 minutes. That's funny. So anyways, I think that you would see, I mean, the Lions are going to start having players not stick on their roster that they draft because the 4th, 5th, 6th round guys aren't going to be able to stick because those spots are already taken by guys they've already taken, are in the process of developing. Okay, I'll look them up. Or whatever. And like, there's less opportunity for the later round guys to stick, right? Maybe they're practice squad guys. Who knows? Maybe they do stick, we don't know. But like, I do think that something like, so what I usually stick with is, what's your top 100 look like? Well, their top 100 this year, like if this is the case, is Jackson Powers Johnson, Braylon Trice, Andrew Phillips, and Carlton Davis. So that's pretty good. I'd be pretty happy with that. So I think that your offensive line is good. You added a pass rusher. You added a corner. You're primarily defense, which I think is the major need on this team. And like, you spent your picks in a way that got you value.
Yeah.
So even if PFF doesn't agree with it. So, yeah. So overall, I think I would be prepared. I'm preparing myself for something closer than what we just did, than say we're going to move up for Cooper DeJean.
That'd be exciting.
Sure.
That's that sexier, more exciting draft class.
Right.
But it's not about building, having 3 days of creating a single sexy, exciting draft class. It's about making the team better for a championship run. And if that means we're getting unsexy positions, and we get better and get to the Super Bowl, then he's doing his job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything else, Drewster, for the good of the show, the good of the order?
Nope. I mean, I'm gonna try to find someone to co-host with me next week. We'll see what happens. Call in some favors.
Right on.
Maybe I'll get like Rich Eisen or somebody to stop by. That kind of thing.
If you got Rich Eisen, you better tell me, because I'll tell my wife, I know we're on vacation, honey, but I'm going to go talk with Rich Eisen for an hour.
If I,
no offense, you're not enough.
If you're going to co-host with me, I'm going to have to cancel Rich. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So, but anyways, we'll have a show next week. We'll talk about some things, probably do another mock draft. And then, of course, the week after, that's draft week. So I'll be thinking about nothing else and being really terrible at my job, and that's when the dreams will start again, where I'll have a dream that like Oakland traded up to, 2 for something, or whatever. And I'll wake up convinced it's real. And then I'll have to get on my phone and learn that it's not. I'm like, oh my God, I dreamed it again. So
that's not weird or anything.
No,
it's great.
Yeah.
All right, man. It's great talking to you. I will be probably listening if I can, depending on what we got going on down in Florida next week. But if not, I'll watch it afterwards and rave about how awesome you are.
Oh, thanks.
So, all right. Well, buddy, talk to you later. Thanks for Pat and everybody in the chat. Hatter, I mean, it was a good group.
Hatters, yeah.
Donkey Kong, Joey was
Yep.
in there, Zake was on there. So we had a good group. Kathy popped in and said hi. She was celebrated a birthday yesterday, so that young lady popped in. I could say that because we're the same age for the next 6 weeks. So I have to say young because then if she's young, I'm young.
Yeah,
so
we don't
that
need
works
to
out well.
So.
I'm not gonna say the number, but
Sure.
we are both young for the next 6 weeks, and then I officially become old on the 26th of May. So, all right, I will talk to you later, man.
Sounds good, Mike.
See you guys.